I did not expect it to blow up like this. This is crazy. I truly do feel so bad for the bride. But it kind of just got exhausting having to literally fight for my business's life. I have lost a lot of sleep over this. I have shed a lot of tears.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to a new video. So I have been making a lot of really heavy, very long, very intense videos recently, and today I just want to talk about something a lot lighter, with lower stakes and something that's a bit more fun. And today I have turned to a topic which touches on my true love in life, basically, and that is photography. I don't get nearly as many opportunities to talk about photography on this channel as I would like, so when I do, I would like to make the most of them. We're going to be talking about some silly online drama today, and this comes from TikTok, and it's only something that I know about thanks to the Do We Know Them podcast and this Reddit post in r/wedding photography, which gave me all the links and fun stuff like that. Basically, the drama all started when this bride decided to straight up call out her wedding photographer publicly on TikTok, including tagging the two photographers involved, their accounts, and sending a hell of a lot of hate their way, as happens when things like this go viral and blow up and whatever. Now, I get it, right? Your wedding is your special day, it only happens once, and you want a reliable photographer to make sure they capture all those really special moments, right? And wedding photographers can be expensive, so you want to get what you're paying for. I know that I've personally only shot one wedding, well, kind of. I've shot one wedding paid, as like, even then I barely charged anything because it was like a favor for a friend of a friend, and then I took some like casual photos for my sister for her wedding. The one I was working, even though it was like a favor, like it was still the most stressful photography job I've ever had, like easily. It's intense. I've also worked with a lot of wedding photographers. I used to work for Folio Albums, who make these like bespoke handmade wedding albums, but just kind of personally over the last, hang on a minute, how old am I? Okay, so over the last like 16 years, I've specialised mostly in photographing live music and events like that. So that's where my specialism is. So I'm used to like working quickly with low lighting, with fast moving subjects, and that's a whole different set of skills to, say, for example, landscape photography or portrait photography or street photography. Each different kind of photography requires you use the camera in a different way and you develop different skills and so on. So with all that in mind, I'm going to be trying to like draw on my own personal knowledge and experience to weigh in on this situation today. So let's start by having a look at the TikTok that the bride posted. Now this has been deleted online, so I had to find a re-upload of it elsewhere, and it's kind of been slightly cropped down, but hopefully you still get the gist of this. Also, it had the most annoying kazoo music. I think it was a kazoo. It was either that or a nose flute. Either way, did not like it, so I have just cut out the audio. It was annoying. And yeah, let's start by looking at these photos because they are objectively bad. Some are underexposed, some are lacking a subject, some are just completely unclear, some are poorly composed, badly edited. There's a lot going wrong in these photos, and if these were the only ones a photographer delivered, I'd be like, well, no one should pay for these. These are horrific. Like, even an amateur with an iPhone could do better, absolutely. Thing is, my first instinct when I saw these was, oh, are they from a guest's disposable camera? Because way back in the day, that used to be a thing. So back when disposable cameras were nice and cheap and they were like $5 each, and developing was like, what, £6 for a roll of film? And oh god, do I miss those days. It was a really common trend for couples to, alongside having a regular wedding photographer, I guess sometimes instead of, but they'd buy like a pack of, I don't know, like 10, 12 disposable cameras, like a big one, and they'd put each one on a different table at their wedding and tell the guests to just like, have fun, take some photos, go crazy. And then obviously the guests get drunk and they get silly and you get really fun, candid photos, right? It's a nice little thing and like everyone's kind of part of it and it's, yeah, whatever. Honestly, most people wouldn't know how to use a flash on a disposable camera and the photos would end up terrible and you'd end up with like 20 good ones out of like 120 shots. But it was part of the fun and the experience and it was a nice thing. I know disposable cameras are ridiculously expensive now in comparison to what they used to be. But at first I thought like, oh, this might be what's happened. Like they've got the disposable camera photos back and there's not many good ones because guests mess up, right? But no, they didn't do that. So that's not what these photos were. These were real photos given to the couple by the photographer. So I understand the bride's anger at receiving these because no client should receive photos like this. No client should receive photos this bad. That is just fact. And the thing is, every photographer, no matter how good you are, how experienced you are, what event you're shooting, you're gonna take some bad photos. That's just a fact of life, It's like 3 things are certain in life: death, taxes, and you'll take some bad photos. You know what I mean? So in that case, I do think the photographer who sent them these files was in the wrong. And I think the photographers also made quite a few other mistakes that we're going to be discussing in detail in a moment. But the big thing here is the bride is wildly misrepresenting the entire situation here. Because these are not the only photos she received. She actually received an album of several thousand photographs. Now the problem is, even with receiving so many photographs, these bad photos should not have been among them. So we're going to talk about what the photographer did wrong first, and then we'll talk about the bride, and we'll circle back round and everything. So let's talk about the photographer. Like I say, these photos should not have been sent to the client. They are the kind of photos that you immediately delete. They are not good enough. They should not be delivered as a final product to the client. It's just as simple as that. I think sometimes certain photographers, especially if they are inexperienced or early in their career, seem to think that the more photos you can deliver, the better, and they compromise on quality. I think the best piece of advice I ever received in regards to photography, which completely changed my life and made me a better photographer in every way, was from my old boss, Stuart Randall. He used to be a wedding photographer himself. He was really well respected. He was absolutely fantastic. And now he only shoots the occasional wedding, I think, but mostly he runs folio albums. So he knows what he's doing. And this one night he was driving me home from work and I was like, do you have any advice for me? That sort of thing. Because I was like, 19 or so and keen to learn. And his one bit of advice is like, if you don't remember anything else, remember this, edit in, don't edit out. And that absolutely changed my entire approach to editing and critiquing my own work. Because like I say, I mostly shoot live music, right? And at those events, you have to be fast. And so to capture the right moment, especially with the lighting change and everything, I will often use, at certain moments, burst mode on my camera, which means you're taking several photos per second. That means that by the end of the night, you can end up with a hell of a lot of photos. We're talking hundreds of photos. Sometimes it's in the thousands if you're doing a big event like Battle of the Bands or you're working a festival or something like that. This is also absolutely true for weddings. You are shooting all day. You're trying to get all the moments, all the special moments. You are going to come away from the wedding with, again, thousands of photos. So how do you pick the best ones out of that? Where do you even start? Well, back when I was still an amateur and I didn't know what I was doing, I would go through my photos and just remove or delete all the ones I thought were too bad or not good enough. And then I'd end up with the rest. And it was a big mix of still hundreds of really good photos, and mediocre photos, and they were all kind of there jumbled together. But it was still a really overwhelming number of photos, and having them all together like that, it's a lot. So when Stuart told me to edit in instead of editing out, that changed my entire approach, because now when I go through a set of photos, it doesn't matter if there's 10 photos or 1,000 photos, I always do the same thing, and I start by assuming that I am getting rid of every single photo, and then I go through each one individually and I say, is this the best I can do? is this not only good enough, but is this exceptional? Is this excellent? Is this something that I want in my portfolio? Is this something that I want to print and frame and put on the wall? Is this something that I want to print out in an album? Is this something that I am excited to show people? And I only, not save, because obviously like I save all my raw files, but I only like kind of keep, if you want to put it like that, the best of the best. And then once I've gone through and I've picked them out, and you know, you might be down to 10 photos, you might be down to 100 photos, you might be down to 200, whatever it is. Once you picked out your favorites and the best of the best, then you can go through and start editing. And I like to do kind of, if everything has the same lighting and everything like that, I'll do a blanket edit on everything and kind of like apply the same settings and then go through each one individually and tweak them to make sure the photo is edited as perfectly as I can, like to the best of my ability. Like I say, you end up with less shots overall and less shots to give to your client, but the ones you're given are fantastic. They're brilliant. They're the best you can do. And it's so much better to give few really high quality photos than a bunch of mediocre ones. So to show you a little example here from a gig I shot late last year, here is me very quickly scrolling through all the raw files from when I saw Everyone Says Hi play at Brudenell. And I took a crap ton of photos this night, as you can see, and I whittled these down to, I had quite a few favourites in here, quite a few that I liked, and I picked them all out, edited them, and then out of those that I'd edited and really, really liked, I sent all of them off to the band. Nick and the guys absolutely loved them, it was fantastic, and then I picked out just 20 of the best to post on social media. There is no way in hell you would catch me sending over all of those unedited raw files, all hundreds of them, because they're not good enough. They're not good photos. Some of them are genuinely bad photos. They're not what I want representing my work. They're not what I want representing my brand. I mean, like, imagine I had sent them to the band and they'd be scrolling through going like, well, why is this one blurry? Why is this one so dark? Why is this one cut Tom's head off? Why is Ben pulling a silly face in this? You know what I mean? There's no need for the band to see them. There's no need for the public to see them. They're not good enough, so you don't show them. You call them. That's completely normal, and it means the work that you're left with is of really high quality, and that's what you want representing you. One of the things I actually really struggle with, and it's kind of getting to me a lot at the moment, is I've always been a big advocate for, obviously, quality over quantity in my creative life. I always put quality first when it comes to photography, and I'm so proud of all the photos that I post. I always put quality first when it comes to my poetry, and the amount of like editing and writing and rewriting that goes into a poem before I put it out there or perform it, you know, I go above and beyond with it. Like with my paintings, I always paint to the best of my ability and only share the paintings and sketch, unless it's like a work in progress I'm showing you guys, like, but I'll only put stuff out there, like make a print of it or something like that, if it's the very best that I can do, which means putting out less than some artists, but quality is more important. But when it comes to YouTube, we do get punished and penalized for putting out less content. YouTube as a platform, and especially like on other platforms like TikTok and Instagram and everything like that, with short form content, which I struggle with anyway and I can't really do, but in general, they care about quantity over quality. And so there's always this pressure to be putting out more and more content, even if that means it not being the best quality. You know, maybe you have to rush and edit. Maybe you don't have time to refilm this thing that went wrong because you're working to these really strict deadlines where they just want you to put out more and more and more. And it's honestly exhausting and it gets you so burnt out. And you're always questioning yourself and second guessing yourself because you're like, I know with more time I could do better, but you don't have that more time. And it's really disheartening. It's stifling creatively. It's a struggle. So yeah, anyway, sorry, that was a little personal aside. Point is, when it comes to photography, especially with things like wedding photographers, there are timelines and stuff that you have to work to, and that's all discussed in contracts beforehand. But overall, you do always have the time to work on getting those quality photos. You don't have to send over thousands of uncut, unedited images, because there's always time to edit. You know, it is possible. Like, this isn't a YouTube TikTok situation. This is where you do actually have the time to do it, which is why it's a real shame to me to see the product that the client was delivered. So after this bride went off online and tagged the photographer and made a really big deal of it and it all went viral, TikTokers then went and found the photographer's website and they actually found the wedding album on there. The link to it was shared, all that sort of thing. And you can see all the photos. And I don't think the photographer culled a single photo. It looks like she literally got all the photos off the camera, batch edited them, and then just exported as JPEGs and uploaded. Like, I don't think anything was done to any individual photos. And the thing is, she did still deliver some really good shots in here. So the bride was misrepresenting the situation. She did get good wedding photos. She just also got a lot of crap ones as well. So let's just have a quick look through the gallery together, kind of scroll through. I've taken a few videos here that you can see. And while there are some really great shots in here, especially the portraits and everything like that, there's also quite a lot of issues. So one of the problems with batch editing is that it doesn't account for lighting changes and things like that. So overall, you can see so many of these photos are quite, well, not quite underexposed. They're a little bit underexposed. Like, the average person might not be able to tell, but like, if you're a photographer and you've seen a lot of photos, like, especially I used to work in a photo lab as well, so as well as working at Folio, so I'm very used to printing and handling photos and looking for these like minor differences in color and that sort of thing. You can immediately see so many of these are just a little bit underexposed, which is a little frustrating. It's quite funny. I remember when I was at uni, I was in the photography society, and we did a kind of joint training session with a local photography studio where they taught us how to do studio photography, which was really, really fun. And he also gave us like a little workshop in like printing and stuff like that. And at one point he was like trying to explain to us like what's going wrong and stuff. And he held up this one print. It's like, right, what's wrong with this? And the entire room was silent. And I was just like going, me. And he's like, you. And I'm like, it's too magenta. And he's like, and what's caused this? And I was like, well, have you checked your nozzles on your printer? And then we were like going through this whole thing. It was actually really fun. But it kind of, that's what sort of drove home to me, the fact that like I immediately saw that as too magenta. I was like, oof, like it's obvious. No one else in the room saw it because they hadn't yet trained their eyes to see it. So that's kind of one of the things that comes with experience when you're doing photography and art or anything like that. Like, you guys might be able to like look at these photos and immediately see some of them underexposed, even if you don't have experience in photography, but maybe because you're an artist or you know other things. Like, it's something that maybe the average person doesn't notice, but certain people will. And if you're a good photographer, you wouldn't let this happen, you know? That said, even good photographers make mistakes, you know, it does happen occasionally, or maybe your monitor's not calibrated correctly, or anything really. There's lots of things that can go wrong, but I'm just saying, it's a thing. The other thing is that we've already spoken about, there's just far too many photos here, and there's too many repeat shots and kind of unnecessary copies. And I understand a photographer taking, you know, 5 or 6 of the same photo, but the idea with that is you go through and you pick out the best one and then you deliver that to the client. You know, you're making you take so many to make sure you're not like, you know, someone hasn't blinked, someone hasn't sneezed mid-photo, a bird didn't fly into the frame, you know, like silly things like that, but that's why you take so many. And then you pick the best one. You don't deliver all of them and then expect the client to be like, well, wait, which one's the best? Which do we like? What do we want to print? No, that's your job as the photographer to pick out the best one. There's some really nicely composed shots in here, but there's also a few that have really not bad composition, but just composition that's a little bit off that could have easily been fixed with like a little crop here or there. Maybe a wonky horizon that's not been fixed. Like, just little composition issues that it would have taken 5 seconds per photo to fix, but she just hasn't done them. That said, there's also some brilliant stuff in here, and there is attention to detail in places. So look at these portraits that are taken in like doorways, surrounded by lots of straight lines and things like that. That's something that's actually really difficult to get right in photography, and yet she's done it so well. All lenses to some degree cause a little bit of distortion, so you might notice kind of bowing on straight lines of your photos and things like that. There are things you can do if you're using Lightroom or other editing software to combat that distortion, and you can often get software that like you put in what lens you're using and what camera you're using, and it'll kind of calculate it backwards for you and whoop, you know, undistort the image. There's ways you can make further adjustments by like transforming the image and moving it around and playing with perspective and stuff like that. So clearly she's done something like that. She's done it really well. She's got all her lines straight. It's not distracting. Nothing's bowed. Like, and that is a difficult thing to get right, and she's done it. So clearly this photographer has some skill, and she can be fantastic. It's also worth noting that the things she shot were great. She got all the key moments, all the key portraits. She got some beautiful portraits of the bride, the groom, the mothers, the fathers, the family, the kids, the decoration. Like, she got everything she needed to. She didn't miss any key moments, and that's a really, really important part of a wedding photographer's job. The raw photos themselves offer a hell of a lot of potential and things to work with. It's just, in my opinion, what lets her down is the editing, or lack of. Like I was saying, let's look at the underexposure here, because this might not seem like a big deal, but if you edit a photo like this brighten it a little bit, brighten the shadows up a little bit, you can make what was quite a mediocre and dull photo look really beautiful and gorgeous with just a few seconds of work. If she wanted to do something crazy and put her spin on it, she could have done some different color grading and stuff, and it could have been really fun. But even just making sure it's properly exposed takes this from a fine photo to, yeah, that's a really good photo. Or on photos like this, for example, where it's a great start, but with a little bit of a crop, you could make it even better. So like, this one just needs you to apply the rule of thirds. As it stands, there is too much empty space up at the top here. It leaves the photo unbalanced. But if you crop it, give it a little tilt maybe, I don't know, then overall the photo appears more balanced and it's just much, much better. And of course, let's make it a little bit brighter too. I have a little bit of an issue with some of her black and whites because it feels like instead of them being black and white, they're just grayscale for the sake of it. They don't really play around with contrast or texture like black and white photos are supposed to, but you know. Like I say, if she'd simply delivered fewer images but spent more time on each one, the overall quality would have been much better. The average wedding photographer will probably deliver between like 200 and 700 photos, depending on how big the wedding is, how long they were shooting for, whether they had a second assistant photographer or not. And that's after taking thousands and thousands on the day. The idea is you cut it down and just show them, you know, the best of each particular moment. You don't need to give them every single image you took in the thousands and thousands. Clearly, as the original TikTok shows though, and as people have pointed out, the biggest problems are clearly from the reception. And this kind of makes sense because shooting in low light is really tricky. And if you haven't practiced it, it can be really, really hard and it's very easy to mess up. I've seen some people online saying that they didn't think the photographer was using a flash and that's the problem, but I think it's a little more complex than that. She clearly is using a flash in plenty of these shots, like look at this, right? But one, the direction of the flash isn't great, and two, it's quite a harsh flash. This shot would have been greatly improved if she'd had something to bounce the flash off of, you know, just soften that flash up a bit so it didn't wash out the natural lighting completely. It seems like she's probably using a built-in on-camera flash, which is never ideal. They're not great. I wouldn't recommend it. So if she'd used an on-camera flash, bounced it slightly, taken in some of the natural lighting, just made it a little bit softer. She could have done so much. Another example of the problem with on-camera flash can be seen in photos like this. So this was one of the ones where I first saw it, and a couple of similar ones, I thought they were taken with a disposable camera because look at this pink haziness that you've got going on, right? That's a classic disposable camera problem caused by a mix of low light, a low ASA film, where ASA refers to the sensitivity to light that the film has, and a flash which wasn't strong enough to reach its intended subject, so you end up with this sort of hazy glow. Since we know this wasn't taken on a disposable camera but was actually taken on a digital camera, it's likely the same problem has happened just in digital. So low light, obviously, look at it. She probably used too low of an ISO, which again is like the digital equivalent of sensitivity to light, and she used a flash which again was too weak to reach the subject that she was trying to shoot. So again, you end up with this haziness. That said, a few of the reception photos are still really good. Some of them she did use the flash well, even if it's still a little underexposed in general, and others she made really great use of the natural light. So there is some good stuff in here. Again, I just wish they'd been cut down and the best ones picked out. Overall, the photographer over-delivered on quantity, but under-delivered on the quality of her editing. However, and here's the crazy thing, the main woman who's getting blamed for this isn't actually the one who took or edited these photos. She is the person who owns the business, runs the business, but she sent what she calls an associate to go and do this job on that particular day, but she's the one who's currently getting all the backlash and hate online for it, or at least she was for a little while. Sending another photographer in your place can be standard practice, it just depends what's in your contract. And in hers, it said she was likely going to send an associate, as she says in this response.
This is crazy. I truly do feel so bad for the bride. If you guys haven't seen my comments, because now it's really blown up, I have lost a lot of sleep over this. I have shed a lot of tears. This was totally being handled offline. There was multiple talks with the mom, and then everything was kind of, I wouldn't say settled because obviously they were unhappy, but everything came to an agreement. And then the bride decided to post this on TikTok. She stated that I went against my contract, which is not true. I sent an associate. My contract talks about associates. I do not have to introduce those two together. I don't even live in the same town as the bride. I'm 3 hours away. So technically any associate that I would have sent that works under me would have been a stranger to her. It just states that I will send someone that I trust to take her photos.
So to draw a little comparison, if you've like not heard of people doing this before, then one of my friends is a musician and he gets booked for a ton of different shows, playing keyboard and bass in various different bands. Sometimes when he can't make a show, or if he's offered a different show on the same night for more money and he's like, oh, I'll take that one, I'll find someone else to take my place on this, and he sends another musician in his place, and usually takes a little cut off the top, and it's, you know, like a booking fee. And he'll send someone with the same skill level as him, who knows the same material, and it's all good. It's very, very standard practice. It's quite common that this will happen if you're booking a photographer or a musician through a business rather than booking this particular photographer or this particular musician. So that's fine. I don't see an issue with this as long as it was communicated beforehand, and since it was in the contract, it clearly was. Then the photographer, or rather photographer organizer or business owner or whatever we'd like to call her, she tells us that she did go above and beyond to try and fix this.
I offered raw photos, don't have to do that. Those pictures are mine legally under my contract. Don't even have to offer a refund. It also states in my contract that I do not have to offer a refund even if she doesn't love the photos. That is something that I offered. I get that not everyone likes that style, and that's why in the gallery I took both and sent them both just in case she didn't like that, which obviously we can see that she didn't.
So offering raw files to a client is wild. It's more than any photographer should ever have to do. I don't know how this bride has the cheek to be like, oh, she didn't do anything to make it better. She didn't offer anything. She's not being held accountable. When this woman is literally like, I am doing what no photographer should ever do to try and make amends to you, to try and make you happy. So if you're not familiar, let me just reiterate. Offering raw photos to a client is absolutely not the norm, and no one does this. Offering raw photos is like a baker offering their client a bag of flour and a bag of sugar and a mixing bowl instead of a finished cake. It's like going to a makeup artist, having all your makeup done, and then saying, actually, I hate this, taking it all off and saying, but give me your products and I'll do it myself. Like, it's just not done. To put it really, really simply, a raw file is a large, unedited file straight from the camera. It contains a lot of information. You generally need a special program like Lightroom or Photoshop or various other programs to be able to view or edit it. You can't get a print straight from a raw file, so you need to know how to export a viewable and printable copy of it. Half of a photographer's job isn't just to take the photos, but to edit them too. So what you're paying for is not only the photos being taken, but the editing, the exporting, the sorting through them all. Without that, it's half a job. If the bride isn't happy and she's demanding that you hand over raw files because she thinks she can edit them better herself, or she wants to hire another editor or whatever, like, it's just not done. So the fact that this business owner was like, yes, to keep you happy, you can have them, like, that's above and beyond. Like, she's essentially handing over the rights to those images, handing over entire creative control. People could do anything to those photos which have your name attached to them. And let's say they edit them in an awful way and share them online, with you listed as the photographer, right? Because that's hopefully going to be in the data of the photograph and everything like that. Then you're going to get blamed for the poor editing, and that's going to reflect badly on you, which is half the reason people don't give out raw files. So clearly, if she was offering to do that, she was desperate to make her client happy. You can't fault her for that. She also proposed, if you excuse the pun, to re-edit the photos completely herself and do that for them, but they were like, no, there's no saving them. But we'll get to that in a second. First, I want you to see this clip.
It's hard because I know I'm not going to please everyone, but I just wish this was handled in such a different way. The night I got the text that they were unhappy, it was the mom. I obviously tried to de-escalate the situation, try to find solutions. Her husband ended up texting me back from the message and obviously just unhappy. I think I offered like 3 or 4 times. I want to make this right. What can I do to fix this? And I never got a text back. It took them over 24 hours to reply to me. And this was yesterday morning. And the mom was super, super nice. Obviously, they were still disappointed, which understandable. But she basically said that she loves me, she loves my work, that this little hiccup doesn't stray away from how they feel about me. They just wanted me to use it as a learning lesson, which I totally understood.
So it sounds like they were being lovely and reasonable, except then they went behind her back and just said screw it and made this TikTok video that went wild and got her so much hate online until people found the photos and then realized the bride was in the wrong, you know?
So under my assumption, everything was fine. And then I was at work and one of my friends sent me the TikTok and she said, "Who is this girl?" And this is a few minutes after it was posted, so it didn't get the traction that it was getting. And I called the mom bawling, and I just said, "Listen, I completely understand that you guys are upset. I thought that we had talked about this, but I do not understand online bashing at all. She just made a TikTok video and I'm tagged in it." So mind you, the bride has never once contacted me since receiving these pictures. And I texted her about the video, basically was saying like, "Listen, I'm heartbroken for you. Like, I've tried everything I physically can. I've offered to re-edit them," which the mom and dad told me, and the bride, after I had confronted her about the video, that they did not think that re-editing would fix the pictures. I offered RAWs, which I legally don't have to.
And again, this is crazy. This is the bit I was talking about. Sure, some of these photos can't be fixed in editing, like the ones that are all like hazy and whatever and like bad composition. Like basically the ones that were in the TikTok, right? They are bad. They can't just be fixed with new edits. But they don't have to be good. You can just delete them. You don't need them all. Not every photo you take is going to be good. Not every photo has to be good. But the rest of them, the ones that literally just need a few minor tweaks and they'd be damn good photos, like they're salvageable, they're fixable. So the offer to re-edit was both generous and, in my opinion, more than enough. It would have fixed all of these issues. And again, this is why I really feel for this woman, because she did do all of this, and the original bride is just lying, saying she didn't. It's absolutely crazy.
And I offered a refund, which, again, legally, I do not have to. This is all my contract. And I basically got off the phone with the mom. She said that she was going to talk to her daughter because she had just gotten out of workout class, didn't see the full video. Well, the video just keeps getting traction. And the bride didn't text me for a good, I would say 10 to 20 minutes after that, and basically wasn't sorry, said that she wasn't intentionally trying to personally attack me. This was just her experience. But she physically tagged me and the associate photographer. So I understand her, I understand that, but this is someone's small business. This does not affect my work. I took full accountability. Obviously, I did not physically take those pictures, but I sent the associate out there. I have taken full accountability for that. Did literally everything in my power to make that right, and this was still posted on social media.
The photographer made some mistakes, we've covered that, and the business owner made some mistakes by not overseeing quality control of the product delivered to her client. However, I really do think, despite my criticisms of certain photos, like, the bride overreacted so much, and she misrepresented the situation so much, and in a lot of cases, she straight up lied. Now, as this bride was only 19, there's a chance she's just young and a bit, like, petulant, you know? And she's also likely a little bit ignorant of what you can normally expect from an event photographer. However, I don't think this excuses her behaviour. The other thing to consider is the fact that this wedding photographer was damn cheap. According to like one post I read, apparently her packages started like $1,800. If you're getting $1,800 for a full day shooting at a wedding and editing and everything, like it's nothing. That is so damn cheap for a decent photographer. And I think this woman definitely got what she paid for. I think the photos are more than and like especially the good ones are more than reasonable for the price she paid. Anyway, on the bright side, it does seem this woman may have learned her lesson because she ended up deleting not only the original video, but her entire TikTok account. And while it's never nice to see anyone kind of run offline, it is nice to see someone hopefully learning and growing from their mistake. But yeah, I think that's pretty much all I want to talk about today. I got a little grumbly Kubi in the background who wants to go for a little walk. Did you, aren't you, baby? Yeah. But yeah, thank you for listening. I just wanted to talk about something a little lighter and a little easier than usual today, and hopefully along the way you've maybe learnt something about photography or the photography business in general. If you like this video and you'd like to see more photography related content from me, then I do have a video reviewing Brooklyn Beckham's photography book, which was fun. Elephants, so beautiful to see, so hard to photograph. You can check that out, it's linked in the video description below. And if you'd like to see more of my photos, just for funsies, I don't really do it for work anymore, I just do it for fun, and for like my friends' bands and things like that, which is great. What was I going to say here? Yeah, if you want to go see them, you can go follow me on Instagram at Rachel Oates with a 0 instead of an O, or over on my website at racheloates.uk. And I've also got some cool art prints and photography prints available. I've got merch. I've got new merch coming out very soon, which is exciting. I'm working on some really cool things behind the scenes that should hopefully all be coming out in March time. I'm going to have some new t-shirts. I'm going to have a sort of bookmarks that I'm designing and drawing for you all. It's great. I've worked on one of the designs with an artist who did some merch for Alizé as well, and her art is fantastic. You are gonna love what she's done. I'm very excited to share that with you. I'm just gonna spend the next month like perfecting everything, putting it all together, and I got some cool stuff. Oh, I'm gonna do these little postcards of some yep, I'll tell you later. I'll tell you later, but it's exciting. If you'd like to support my work, you can over on Patreon, and even as little as $1 a month just helps keep a roof over my head and helps me keep making these videos, because views are always up and down, and at the minute we're in a little bit of a downward swing, and Patreon is what keeps me going, and it's really helpful, so thank you. I've got some little bits over there where you can see some exclusive videos and script notes, and there's some polls for you all and some behind the scenes stuff and previews of my book, which is hopefully coming out soon. Oh god, I have so much to promote at the end of this video. This is why I don't do self-promotion. There's always so much, it just feels like it just goes on. But yeah, I'm starting to get over my little self-doubt, lack of self-confidence thing, and I've been working on my book again, and it should be out really soon. It's just like a little finishing touches I'm doing now, but I'm also like overhauling the cover design. I had like 4 that I put to people, and I was like, which one do you like best? And based on their feedback, I'm like, actually, I'm gonna do a whole new design, but I think it's gonna be good. Kubi is getting so grumbly. Right, I'm gonna go walk her. Thank you for watching, I appreciate you all so much. Leave a like, leave a comment, let me know what you think, and I'll see you again soon. Goodbye. Kibbity dibbity! Where's that stump? Have you got a lot to say? She is such a little grumpy girl. Can you see? Oh, you can see her. Look, there she is. There she is. We got a little wet, that little grumble pig. Oh, what a good girl. What a beast. I know.